it's like virginity, losing your virginity. No, it is. It's like a marked difference, you know. And I was talking with Hannibal about it, about unveiling a reality that you didn't understand before. You know, before you lost your virginity, assuming you've all done that, assuming, I don't know, you have some idea of what being a sexual being might be like. You know, and I remember mine was innocent and beautiful and it had all these lovely things to it. You know, and then the reality was actually quite messy and disgusting and afraid. I was afraid, and there's all these things that were harmful about it. It was nothing like it. Yeah, my idea of what it could have been was nothing like what it actually was. And once I had that experience, I could never go back to think of it the other way. I was so mistaken. And then I used that experience, and you could turn it into something beautiful and magnificent and way beyond what that original expectation was. But it was a real experience, not a mental image of an experience, not a fake idea of an experience. And so once you have that, and you develop in that, you can't go back and think the way you used to. And so the division of two kinds of people are those who have had that experience in emptiness directly, those who have not. They behave differently in accord to those realities. Yeah? So then the question was, is the quality of the experience for a person who's just seeing emptiness directly for the first time same or different to one who abides in emptiness directly all the time, like a Buddha?
They have awareness of both realities.
So the quality of being in emptiness. Same or different?
Same.
Give me the logic, why? And the reason this comes up is because, don't forget, we're in the 9th chapter of the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, right? So Master Shantideva is now, and I didn't tell you this, he's now about to launch into a debate with all wrong ideas about emptiness before we get into the depths of emptiness. He starts debating in his text, these beings say that, well, I say this, and they say this, and then I would say that, and so does Gyaltsen J in his commentary. So, give me the logic why it would be the same. Here he was refuting some schools who said that there are degrees of emptiness. You can get 90% degree of emptiness.
It wouldn't be ultimate truth.
That's a pretty simple answer. Duh, right? If it's a thing, if it's a real thing, it's either all of it or it isn't. It's ultimate, it's either all ultimate or it's not.
But isn't a Buddha aware of it while it's happening, whereas the person...
But while he's in, but so the being, different to in the experience, right, are a completely different spectrum. Is there a difference in the person or in the being that has had or is having the direct experience of emptiness? Yes, 10 bodhisattva levels. Right? So you are clearing out certain obstacles through your career after having had a direct experience of emptiness, all the way up to being able to sustain that and have omniscience. Of course, there's a difference between the beings, so that you might have a question in your quiz next week that might ask you that, right? So are the beings the same? So then, Master Shantideva starts debating these ideas about wrong ideas of emptiness. So let me just transmit what Geshe Michael did in the 90s, which was, he said, before I get into what Master Shantideva started debating in the Bodhisattva Charyavatara and Gyaltsen J in the commentary, because let me talk about 3 stupid ideas of emptiness that we have in the West that don't even make it to the debate in the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, right? That they're so stupid they don't even get there yet. Yeah? So what's the first most stupid idea of emptiness that we all must have had at some point when we first heard these ideas? I didn't even see you there before. Were you always there?
No,
Okay.
you're
Okay.
like it's like that thing, like
blank, darkness, empty space, right? You close your eyes and everything goes black, and that's emptiness, right? That's one. Good. We got the black void, nothingness. First, stupid, mostly Western idea. They had these in the East as well. They just didn't make it to the Bodhisattva avatar worth arguing about, because that's not even worth talking about. Next one.
Nothing matters.
Cool. That's sort of the third most stupid one that he mentioned, right? There's one in between that. The one before that would be, why would something not matter? What's the logic? If someone says emptiness, my dad used to say this to me all the time as a child. He went to some course, I don't know what it was, he went to some class, he hung out with whoever it was, and he would say to me and my mother and my siblings that something came before that as the logic. Things are empty, therefore they don't exist. And if nothing exists, then nothing matters. So there's the two, right? So things are empty means nothing exists. It's just all an illusion, the Buddha said. So screw it. Let's do the hell you want. Right? It's probably the most destructive and misunderstanding of the idea of things don't have a nature. It's actually the complete opposite of what we should understand. And I'll give you a quick summary. If things have no nature, if nothing exists out there the way you experience them, things have no nature, you are experiencing a certain way, right? Where the hell is that coming from? Not from the things, remember, they're empty of that nature. Where are they coming from? Your mind. Who put them there? How did you put them there? Your actions, all the habituation you've got about your existence is forcing you to see things in a certain way. That is what makes us a human realm. We share a bunch of these habits to see and experience this data in this particular way. Bring a dog, an elephant, an ant in here cannot do the conceptualization you're doing. They are forced by their own mental constructs to experience the same data in a completely different way. So it's because things are empty that they completely matter, that you must be completely moral. Not because baby Jesus told you to be good or daddy said you'll go to hell. They're just techniques, I guess, from other traditions to say, don't be an asshole. Because it'll just harm you. Every negativity you put out in the world, you must necessarily experience. Everything. Not some things are omitted. No one's sitting there with a filter to go, Nick, you don't get that bad thought back. Sorry, we keep that for you. You can relax. Everything that goes through your mind must give a result. Everything that goes through your mind motivates you to do two things. You're either going to say something wonderful or stupid or neutral, or you're going to act on something wonderful or stupid or neutral. And watching yourself do, think, and say those things produces the stuff that loads up your projector, that projects that reality onto this thing we call our existence. So that wrong view, that didn't even make it here, by the way, right? That emptiness means nothing exists, and therefore nothing matters. I can do the hell I want. I can be as immoral as I like. There's no virtue, there's no non-virtue. Another one that is possible is I'm a tantric practitioner. I've learned more than this basic stuff. So I can just push the envelope and it doesn't matter. If you get that in your head at all, because you must experience everything. And the higher the object, the more powerful the result, the quicker. So those three don't count the list, but we should talk about them. Emptiness is not black void nothingness. Emptiness is not nothing exists. We're talking about stuff. Like the stuff. It's obviously not that. Now it doesn't exist. It's stupid. It's a landing object. So what does it mean when it says it's an illusion? What do they mean when it says it doesn't exist? There's no self. What does it mean? And you've got to think that way. It means there's no self-nature. That there's nothing in that radiating to you a reality that you can't change. If it was like that, you couldn't get enlightened. You couldn't change. We'd be frozen. So, I'm going to do this really quickly. There might be another question on your quiz and homework, and this is really worth looking at. And for those of you who have studied longer, get deeper into this. It will help you. For those of you who are fairly new or just coming to these ideas, just get the high level, okay? Master Shantideva and Gyaltsab Je group these 4 classic schools of Indian philosophy. So the 4 ideas of applying the Buddha's teaching came about in ancient India, predominantly because the Buddha taught them, to different levels of practitioners, so we could grasp onto these ideas at different levels. The first 3 schools, and look, I've been studying this for 20 years, and over the last 5, I just got so sick about my mind not getting the schools that I started doing a chart that I'm not going to give you, okay, that I want you to do for yourself if you've been studying here for a while, because doing it helps you connect the dots. And the first thing I've put here are the schools. Yeah, so there are 4 schools of thought, not schools as in whatever it's schoolhouse, not like that schools. Meaning, when you take on the teachings of the Buddha, your mind will go to believe certain things, right? When emptiness comes up, or dependent origination comes up, or you go to certain belief systems. So the first one, Geshe Michael called the Abhidharmas, but it's the detailist school, or the Vaibhashika or Chitta Mantra school, the school of high knowledge. The second school, Geshe Michael called the Sutrists, or is the logic school, or Sautantrika, nothing to do with Tantrika. And the third school is called the mind-only school, or he called the mind-only school, that includes the Chitta Mantra and Yogacarya.
Wait, sorry, the second one was?
Sutrist, also known as the logic school or the Sautantrika, not the Svatantrika, Sautantrika. So if you've not heard this before, just be impressed that there's all these groups of people that think differently about the core ideas behind reality. It's all we're dealing with. Is the life you're living, the way you're experiencing it, is that really what it is? And through investigation of what the Buddha taught, these 4 different ways of understanding that, these 3 so far schools or groups of beings came together going, oh, I agree, it's like this, like the mind-only school, understanding that everything is essentially in your mind, and we talked about that in other things. So the first school I'm just summarizing as the Abhidharmists, okay, because they're predominantly studying the Abhidharma kosha. The second, I'm going to call the Sutras, but it's the logic Sautantrika. The third, mind-only, which is Chitta Mantra and Yogacara. And then the 4th school is the middle way school, or the the Madhyamika, which means middle way, Madhyamika. Cool. Just to confuse things, there's 2 divisions in that school. Okay, there's let's call it the independent Madhyamika, middle way, and the implication, middle way, Madhyamika Prasangika. The other one is Madhyamika Svatantrika. Okay. They're called independent. So these are names to groups of people that understood the Buddha's teaching in a specific way to try and understand what? Reality. Why? Because they were having a hard time in life. And they wanted no more suffering. Really. Yeah, they didn't have iPhones and shitty jobs or whatever. They had something else bothering them.
They probably had shitty
They
jobs.
probably had a shitty job. Yeah. Take that back. Right. They certainly had relationships with each other on the planet. But these are people just like you sitting here tonight, wanting deeply to understand what is this thing I'm in? What is this suit I told life? Is there more to this existence than what it appears? And they've devoted enough mind to develop a sangha, a group of people that believed and understood that reality in a similar way. Yeah, the school that we're teaching from is the Majjhimika Prasangika. Yeah, and just as an aside, that's the middle way. Prasangika is consequence, right? And you know why they call that? Because they're sarcastic. Okay, seriously. So the way they teach you to understand the ultimate nature of things is they create sarcastic comments through logic that force you to go, oh, it mustn't be that at all. So it's like, oh, so you're saying ta 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 ta, and then you feel like an idiot. You're like, oh no, that would be stupid, right? So then you're forced to have a correct view, and I like that. So
We couldn't tell.
we can tell. I'm going to group, or Geshe Michael group the first three schools, which is the next argument of the chapter we're studying, right? The Master Shantideva is saying there are those beings out there that believe that because things function, they must truly exist. Check that out. So Master Shantideva starts this debate between different views of thinking of reality. There's some beings out there that think because things function, because things perform a function, they must truly exist. Think about that. If things function, they truly exist. They must be that way, right? And if someone said from their own side, who said that? Who did that? That's the implication, right? And we're not learning that, right? I'm not teaching that. Geshe Michael didn't teach that. The Dalai Lama is not teaching that. He's teaching Prasangika. He's saying something else. I'll get to that something else in a second. Group the first three schools, the Abhidharmas, the Sutras, and the Mind-Only school, as the functionalist school. So he groups all those three groups of thinkers and says, hey, if you really check out what they're saying that. They're saying if things perform a function, they must truly exist. So the functionalists might say that. They're called the functionalists because things function. They're talking about things functioning. That's actually the Tibetan word for them. Those that profess functioning. But what's wrong with that? Say that again.
Things that function are bound to structure.
That's cool. So they'll end up not functioning, you're saying, at some point, right? Okay, that's cool. But surely, Theo, they exist. I mean, we're talking about stuff. And they perform a function. A car that runs over my leg functions to break my leg. It definitely exists, no? It really exists, right? That way? All cars that run over legs break legs. Think about it. It's a really sweet idea. I bet you all believe it. I believe it most of the time. That's what being locked in samsara is. Master Shantideva goes, mistaken way of thinking.
You
Huh?
cannot change your world.
Yeah, the assumption that because things exist, and Rachel said the way you experience them is the only way they exist, then A, you can never get out of suffering, right? We're stuck here forever. It's just really saying that things are out there in the way you've just experienced. It completely discounts the elephant, the dog, and the ant. They can't have an experience of a landing pad or something to step on if it's a flower that only exists that way, the way I experience it. So he begins to chop down that view by the Majjhimika view, by the middle way view, right? He's saying, what's the opposite of thinking that way? I mean, think about it. If we weren't being trained as Majjhimikas, if nobody came to your mind, like we've been fortunate enough to have someone knock on your mind and force in your mind this idea of mental projections, your karma ripening upon empty objects. If nobody ever taught you that, you'd think that way. I would. I mean, I do most of the time. I think if I open the door, it will open and I can get in. It functions, therefore it exists that way. Right? Did you not have a functioning cookie thing? Yeah? This is not functioning. This does not exist. Pretty yummy. So, you might have a question that says, people who seek to establish the meaning of the two truth or realizations can broadly be divided into two types of groups. And first is the functionalists, the beings that say things exist that way. They believe that things that function must be real. Or the middle way, Majjhimika. Middle way. Why middle way?
It's free of extremes.
Okay, it's in the middle, so you're holding view, thanks Teddy, between two sides, two extremes. What's one of the extremes? This is the way things really exist.
Nothing exists.
The two extremes that this view is pushing you in, right? Now notice you're not landing on a solid thing yet. You're just being pushed between two views, right? That nothing exists at all, or that everything exists the way that you see them, experience them, and sense them. Between those two extreme views lies a view, a realization, a mental state, a way of engaging with reality that you're being squeezed into. That's the middle way.
Steven wore a shirt once that said nothing is the ultimate everything.
I know.
Does that have anything?
Yes, it does, but you can talk to Evan about that. Evan, if you're listening, thanks for making a shirt.
Wait, is that Evan who wrote Road to Nowhere?
Road to Nowhere, Evan Shapiro. Yeah. He did. He sent Steven a t-shirt saying nothing is the ultimate everything. Yeah. So let's talk about the middle way school, right? What's this view that's been pushing you between two extremes? How do things exist? If they don't not exist at all, and they don't exist in the way they appear only. I explained it before.
When you create a
Right.
relationship to the person who's experienced.
So things are every object in your mind, the sounds I'm saying, the sense of being in this room, the wanting to go home or excited to hear more. I don't know. The emotions you're feeling, everything is blank. It's not that way just because it is. It's not coming from my voice, the room, yourself sitting there. It's forced on you. That experience is forced on you. You can, once you've had the experience, you can't say, I didn't intend that one. You know, like you had it already. It's done. You can't say, I'm going to shift that. It's done. Finished. Dry concrete, Geshe Master says. You're observing yourself having experiences moment by moment. And you're reacting to those experiences moment by moment. Where did they come from?
Projection comes from your mind.
Your mind is creating them. Who put them there? Can you choose them? Can you say, I want to have a very different projection now. I want half an hour back so I can finish teaching the class. Can we do that together? Let's try. If we can do half an hour, let's do 3 hours so we can just go home before we got here. You know? It doesn't work that way. That's not real. You can't force it. It's forced on you. But did someone make it?
Yes.
Who? You did. Who put it in there? You're watching yourself saying, thinking, and doing certain things. Those imprints on your mind are actually the things that creates the filter through which you see life. And you habituate a certain habit enough, you can't stop but seeing the world that way. When I was younger, and I really enjoyed pornography. Now that I'm older, I don't enjoy it as much. No, that you can't. No, seriously, who's
They
not?
had pornography?
They had pornography in 1865. Yeah, shut up. No respect. No, but I'm trying to use an extreme example so you can connect to it, right? If you're sitting there looking at pornographic images day after day, or playing a stupid video game, which might be awesome, by the way, day after day, don't tell me you can immediately go outside and walk past a person that's showing some skin of whatever sex you're interested in and not have those thoughts come in your mind and be placed on them that way for a long time. Or if you're playing a really awesome video game like Zelda, don't tell me you haven't gone outside and then think you're in the video game still. Yeah, like I have, and it's not like you're trying. Whatever you're putting in there, it's just gigo. Good in, good out. Bad in, bad out. No, garbage in. That's gibo. Okay, so I'm going to finish in 10 minutes. So 10 o'clock is the cutoff time. I know that was really upsetting for you, Emily, the other day. I apologize. It was all over your face. I don't want to embarrass you in public, but this is emptiness we're talking about. Sorry. So then the functionalists argue that point. They say, hold on, you're telling me that things are an illusion and blah, blah, blah. So their argument is, if things don't have a nature of their own, then they mustn't exist at all. And if they do exist, they must exist solidly the way that they appear. So they come up with these two arguments. If they don't exist, if they're an illusion, they must not exist at all. They're going to the extreme. Or if they do exist, it's a different way to put it, then they must be that way, the way I just experienced them. They must be real. Now, the trick, I think, for understanding the Majjhimika perspective to begin with is that we think it's a contradiction to have an experience of deceptive reality as being deceptive and the reality we're experiencing because we think it's not deceptive. So in that contradiction we get stuck. Is there a problem if we say the way we experience things are really being experienced, but they are not only that way? Is there a problem with that? No, we were just having a chat about beings that might have a sense that they're happy and joyful and completely in bliss and they're not crazy or anything like that, and other people might see them as suffering beings. Who's correct? Both can be correct, right? Whose reality is not true? Different way of asking the same question. Your reality is your truth. Does that mean that there's no reality? Is there reality? Yeah, we talked about it. Put your deceptive truth legs in front of a deceptive truth car and go to the deceptive truth hospital and get deceptively truth treated. Seriously, and pay the bill, the deceptive truth bill. Things function, but it doesn't mean that they have to be that way. There's no contradiction between things functioning and not having a nature of their own. We get stuck in that, and that's what the functionalists are stuck in the debate with Master Shantideva at this point. It's actually extremely profound. So if you take Geshe-Mopo's example of the pot, if the pot was like the functionalist said, it's only teapot and therefore it's only got tea, then no other being that perceived it could ever think of it as anything else. So it's not a wall of boiling water for an ant. It has to be tea. So how many ants go for a cup of tea? I'm sitting down for a cup of tea. It's ridiculously simple and we get stuck in it. It's actually so simple, that's why it's profound. Here is the thing. If that isn't tea from its own side, if it really is data, millisecond by millisecond, and we are imputing meaning and truth and reality on it as we experience it, and we don't even remember causing it that way. but we understand through analysis it must be coming from that way, then all of a sudden you can treat the same data, the same thing you're sensing, the same thing you're seeing and smelling and touching, and with that understanding, with the understanding of emptiness, which is wisdom, you can then interact with that liquid that to you is tea right now and plant the causes for later on it becoming ambrosia, the most magnificent nectar of all bliss. It's got that capacity because it's neither a wall of boiling water nor tea, but it is being experienced as tea. Do you see how beautiful it is? The Madhyamika point of view, the view that says things are empty, therefore they're real, is stunning. It really breaks away the being locked in the function of a system. So then that's whole debate that ensues. The last thing I want to talk about, there's a couple of more technical questions that they get into a fight. And one of them is around, hold on, if beings are an illusion, how can you say this rebirth, for example? So if everything's an illusion, how can you say this rebirth? And then he just goes through, like that's a stupid question. It's like saying, an actor that puts on certain clothing and then changes that clothing is not the same actor. Like the fact that your mind projects your reality and all of a sudden you're having this kind of life, and then that reality, that mind changes because the karma changes and you're having a completely different kind of life, is no different from you being upset one moment and not upset the next moment, or a young child one moment and an older person the next moment. It's still your consciousness imputing whatever the realities that are coming from your consciousness, but it's the same mind experiencing it. Reincarnation is actually simpler in that method. Yeah, so that's a little debate. I'll go through it in more detail. And then the last question you might have in 3 minutes, they get into a debate that the functionalists say, hold on, Master Shantideva, it's sort of a low punch. He's saying, you're saying that, I've got to tell you this first. There's this term called natural nirvana and then nirvana. Do you remember what natural, I taught it once, natural nirvana is? What's the natural nirvana of an object?
Emptiness.
It's emptiness, great. Right? It's called natural nirvana, so it's a term used to describe the emptiness of something. Natural nirvana. So the functionalists go, hold on, you guys believe in this thing called natural nirvana, meaning everything naturally is empty of having a nature, therefore it can get you to nirvana, right? So the functionalists go, oh, you guys believe that everything has natural nirvana. If everything in samsara has natural nirvana, you're just saying that the Buddha lives in samsara. Like it's just a stupid logic. Do you see? Or not? Yeah? And so Madhyamika school, Master Shantideva says, don't be an idiot, right? He explains it's not that kind of nirvana. Yeah, that natural nirvana has actually nothing to do with nirvana. It's just a term for emptiness. That real nirvana is the permanent cessation of all mental afflictions, and you can't be in samsara. So that would be, I think, the last difference between those two debates. So basically, and I want you to think about this between now and next class, we're asked, we're invited to consider, what do we really think? Like out of all those schools, which, by the way, in the matrix, the name of the school, then you've got an idea that under each system of thinking, the idea of dependent origination is slightly different. You know, there's 3 different ideas of dependent origination. And then the idea of emptiness and the gacha, the thing we deny, are again slightly different based on that understanding of dependent origination. It's worth having a chat with me about it, and I want you to investigate and do your own chart, because if you understand that, then you can understand why these debates are important. And they are essentially important because all of you probably hang out in the functionalist school if you're really advanced. Like most of us do. And we're being pushed to the idea of the Prasangikas, the implication school of the Madhyamika school, to consider the reality that we are imputing reality all around us, and that we have the potential to load the projector to experience every kind of bliss, including a transformation from a schmucky life to a complete enlightened being. You, no one else. You, the beings here. Some echo is saying to you in your head right now, it is possible for you not to live the existence you live. Oh, but some of my existence is nice. Not if it's going to end, not if it's going to be destroyed, like Theo said. Not at that time. Not when all the money runs out, not when your bones start breaking, not when the relationship breaks up. It keeps cycling. There is a way to transform that entire experience of existence to complete bliss. And if you do the fast track, doing all the stuff that you need to do to get there, you can even do that in one lifetime. You, like no one, no, not someone out there in the future. You. That's why you're in the room. So let's do a quick dedication. Thank you for staying till 10 o'clock. It's important.
사시
Bukia Jishin Metokram Nira Limshin Hadi Sangha Shindu Mitevargi Dragun Namda Shinla Chupasho Idam Buraknamandara Kamniyatayami
개와
Ilgokun Sunam Yashe Soksokshim Sunam Yashe Lejunwe Rampa Kuni Tobarsho.
I hope it stays in your hearts and minds and that you can figure out a way to help other people who are struggling to figure out their realities with whatever you've learned.
Thank you for teaching.
Oh, my pleasure. It's really lovely. Thank you for staying. Yeah. Two announcements. If you're volunteering or teaching at the Three Jewels, there's two meetings, one on Sunday, one on Tuesday. Mandatory